Hello YouTube. The Invisible Guard. How underwater special forces protect the Russian Navy. That's how the Russian media refers to that Spetsnaz forces. In the scant reports that surface occasionally, one of the most classified units in the Russian Navy is the diving sabotage detachments. They're also called combat swimmers. Specialists used to perform tasks to protect ships and coastal structures from sabotage. In addition, military personnel serve as part of the Navy's special forces, whose purpose is to perform special tasks in ports, waters, and on the shores of the enemy. Here's what is known about what modern underwater special forces in Russia can do, what special means and weapons they are equipped with, and how they become combat swimmers, according to one such media report. It was published before the war with Ukraine, just to clarify. This is, without exaggeration, the elite of the fleet. They are trained to sink enemy ships alone, are able to operate at depth, navigate the water column even at night. The types of weapons that underwater soldiers are equipped with are not used on land. The physical principles of firing underwater or shooting underwater are different than on surface. For the first time, the project of multifunctional deep-sea diving complex for training underwater at different depths of an entire unit at the same time was presented at the international exhibition Innovation Day of the Russian Ministry of Defense 2015. Such a complex was opened on the basis of the Ryazan Higher Airborne Command School, named after V.F. Margelov. The complex makes it possible to train specialists using diving equipment with closed and semi-closed breathing patterns. It simulates currents of different directions and forces, providing training in special weapons shooting. In addition, cadets are trained in mining and mine clearance underwater. The main components of the unique complex are a 21-meter deep sea diving tower, a 50-meter pool with depths up to 16 meters, and a coastal pressure chamber. Actions to capture enemy ships are also practiced there. Apparently, someone called all of this to be entertainment. Well, because the journalists who compiled the report mentioned in the defense that if we recall the seizure of the tanker Moscow University with pirates and hostages on board, then skepticism will immediately disappear. A detachment from the large anti-submarine ship Marshal Shaposhnikov stormed the abducted ship from the air and water at the same time. This assault became one of the most successful and high-profile operations against modern pirates. Underwater Spetsnaz, special forces, are delivered to the place of the mission in various ways. The Spetsnaz is parachuted from a helicopter. In this case, the commandos land in the sea a couple kilometers from the target of the assault, parachutes out of the aircraft, and approaches the object on a special underwater vehicle. This and other methods of action at sea are being worked out just during the training of underwater saboteurs. From a helicopter, the ejection can be carried out by cable or by jumping from the height of 10 to 15 meters. Each paratrooper is equipped with equipment weighing under 50 kilograms. At the same time, it should be understood that any mistake in actions during driving, in this case, can cause at least injury, or as a maximum, That's why diving practice takes place first from a low altitude and only then from a maximum allowable 15 meters. By the way, about the equipment of an underwater saboteur operative. It consists of a closed-type wetsuit. Thanks to it, the skin practically does not come into contact with water. Fins, a mask, a special knife CH21 with which you can saw through metal, snap off wires. The basis of the whole kit, which gives a person the opportunity to act underwater, is a breathing apparatus. In the special forces, it is also special. A closed loop when the bubbles do not come out like an ordinary diver. That is, they do not unmask a saboteur. The diver also has a special parachute. We're talking about special forces who are flown to the place of the performance of tasks and thrown out from a high altitude. That's what it's called, the PV-3 diver's parachute. The peculiarity of this device is that when approaching the surface of the water at an altitude of 3 to 5 meters, the parachute undocks and the person lands without it. Otherwise, the parachutist would have simply become entangled in the slings and drowned. The underwater breathing apparatus starts working at the same time as the submersion into the waters. It is not by chance that divers are trained at the renowned Ryazan Airborne School. This is where future Marine unit commanders come from, and it's not for nothing that they say about the Russian Marines, conquerors of the three elements. They have to fight at sea, operate on land, and make parachute jumps. In short, these are very real universal soldiers. The Russian Marines include groups of combat swimmers. Their tactics are unique in their own way. Swim stealthily to the object, check out the situation, and receive a boat with an assault group that has approached the landing site. That's how the tanker Moscow University was stormed. The naval special forces on several boats approached the captured tanker with one push. The entire operation to capture the huge ship lasted exactly 22 minutes. Another method of approaching the object is landing from a submarine through the torpedo tube lock. This task is not an easy one, given both the rather narrow space of the torpedo compartment and the size of the diver's equipment. In addition, to work in the ocean, a person needs to be additionally insulated. And this is an additional centimeters to the volume. Interestingly, in preparation for this method of landing, students, so to say, or cadets, are first driven through a dry torpedo tube several times. This is necessary to check how a person feels in such an enclosed space. Those suffering from claustrophobia will definitely not pass such a test. In general, according to Sergei Ananyev, senior diving instructor at the Ryazan school, the scariest thing underwater is panic. We tell the cadets three simple words in class: breathe, think, do. Moreover, the sequence of these words cannot be changed in any case, the instructor noted. It is worth adding that another way out of the submarine is through its escape hatch. It seems to be easier. Climbing through the narrow tube of the torpedo the torpedo tube is no longer necessary and at the same time difficult. For example, how do you climb a ladder, even if it's small, with flippers on your feet? All this is worked out during training. The Kronstadt Museum of the Submarine Fleet has an exhibition telling about the diverse saboteurs of the past years. Then the exit was carried out from the torpedo tube of the submarine, and the equipment included a dark green jumpsuit and an insulating breathing apparatus. Speaking of suits, A super durable diving suit that is not susceptible to damage was presented at the Army 2016 International Military Technical Forum. The components of the fabric from which such clothes are sewn have no analogs in the world, and that's why the production technology remains a mystery. A compressed air cylinder was also manufactured using the original innovative technology. Even if he is shot through, so to say, there will be no explosion and the diver will not be injured. According to Alexei Pravdivets, the lead designer of the underwater equipment manufacturing company, the pressure that can be pumped into the cylinder is 450 atmospheres. For comparison, the maximum parameter of the closest Western competitors is about 300 atmospheres. And another indicator is the weight of the diving equipment set. In England, it is approaching 50 kilograms. The mass of the Russian device is 24 kilograms. Domestic equipment also makes it almost impossible to deprive Russian divers of breath. If, say, the hose of his main breathing apparatus is cut in underwater hand-to-hand combat, a spare one will come into play. By the way, underwater saboteurs are also taught the art of hand-to-hand combat. How to go underwater behind an opponent's back, how to deprive him of breath. Still, it's more profitable to have firearms. Interestingly, Russian submarine saboteurs are armed with special underwater submachine guns. Colleagues, as the Russian media refers to them, from the armies of Western countries have only pistols. You need to be able to fire underwater. The fact is that water distorts vision. It is not so easy to hit the target, but the same Ryazan Airborne School has its own underwater shooting range for training specialists. They teach underwater saboteurs and they teach them of stealthy movements underwater. Noise even underwater leads to the failure of the operation. Underwater special forces are also silently learning how to get out of the water, board ships, and eliminate terrorists. These people can do anything. In July of 2020, the Russian anti-terror group repelled an attack by simulated underwater saboteurs on a military facility near Lake Issyk-Kul. I will describe the operation later and the significance of it to my decades-long research. For the anti-terror forces, protecting coastal bases and ships from attacks from underwater is only an auxiliary function. The Russian Navy has special people for this purpose. Military personnel of the Special Forces units for combating underwater sabotage forces and means. The Russian abbreviation for this is NSSP. They are usually called combat swimmers. The NSSP detachments operate in patrol mode and are sharpened to search for and eliminate enemy sabotage divers. This is their main difference from the Navy's special forces, which are initially trained to be deployed behind enemy lines. Despite the fact that these two structures have directly opposite goals, in some situations they can act together. The activities of the anti-sabotage units are so secret that even veterans who have been in reserve for a long time refuse to disclose the details of their service. So Russian journalists some years ago managed to contact the diving officer who coordinated the work of the combat swimmers from the headquarters. On condition of anonymity, he spoke a little about his work and noted that one of the most unpleasant procedures for him was leaving the submarine. The tube of the torpedo tube accommodates 3 divers in full gear. When you get in there and the lid closes behind you, the sensations are frankly specific. After that, the front cover opens and seawater is poured noisily. From a psychological point of view, this is not an easy procedure, the source said. The officers stressed that combat divers have a lot of routine work, such as searching for mines, caches, and enemy bookmarks, so to say, on the bottom. It is often necessary to examine every bush and stone in large areas, literally probing the mud with your hands. Swimmers work in shifts. The schedule depends on military tensions and the operational situation at a particular base. It also happens that for several weeks there is always someone underwater. Underwater patrols are available at all major Russian naval bases, including those stationed abroad. It was reported, for example, that the protection of the Russian base in Tartu, Syria, was entrusted to combat swimmers of the Black Sea Fleet. They are engaged in anti-sabotage and mine protection of ships, as well as control coastal areas near the base, suitable for possible terrorist landings. The combat team usually includes a commander and a senior instructor, a diver, reconnaissance divers, miners, and one radio technician regularly conduct training for underwater combatants at Gadjievo, the main base of the Northern Fleet's underwater forces. Commanders are examining nuclear submarines and berths for suspected mining. Similar training sessions are taking place in the Pacific, Baltic, and Black Sea fleets, as well as in the Caspian Sea. In addition, combat swimmers can be involved in protecting the state border in the underwater environment and searching for sea mines in shallow waters where minesweepers cannot be used. When a ship is hijacked by terrorists, a combat group infiltrates it, eliminates the bandits, and frees the hostages. Not everyone can become a combat swimmer. They are recruited to serve in the National Security Council of the Russian Federation after the strictest selection. The main conditions are good physical fitness, strong nerves, and the ability to stay calm in extreme situations. It is also necessary to tolerate pressure drops well when diving to great depths. People with fears of darkness, loneliness, and confined spaces are eliminated immediately. If selected, the cadets will have to endure a complex training program that includes marine, diving, airborne, navigational, and topographic mining, physical training, mine blasting, hand-to-hand combat, survival skills, and radio equipment. Physical training also includes endurance exercises and resistance to oxygen starvation. All divers must be able to accurately navigate the depths. All commandos have hand-to-hand and knife fighting skills underwater and are also armed with unique weapons, special underwater and dual medium submachine guns and pistols, DP-65 anti-sabotage grenade launchers. In addition, they have technical means in their arsenal to detect saboteurs and mine ships. Underwater weapons are much more complex in design than land-based weapons, since they require trouble-free operation in an aggressive marine environment. For example, the main difference between the two medium special submachine gun ADS and its land-based progenitor A91 is the exhaust mechanism, which is equipped with a water-air switch. In the first position, the inside of the weapon is completely sealed, which prevents water from entering. In addition, a special PSP cartridge has been developed for the ADS, which is equally effective in both environments. The maximum underwater firing range is 25 meters. Not much, but that's all it takes, since underwater visibility is very limited. Combat swimmers patrol the coastal zone on new Project 21980 Grachonok anti-sabotage boats. As a rule, combatants work near the base, but if necessary, they can be deployed by airplanes and helicopters to the desired area. The units of the NSSP of the Russian Federation patrol exclusively military facilities. Protection of important coastal state facilities from saboteurs is the responsibility of the Rosgvardia submariners. They are trained at the diving base in Severobaikalsk. The training marine detachment of the Siberian district of the National Guard troops is located there. In addition to the main job of protecting facilities, Rosgvardia swimmers also help the Ministry of Emergency Situations and border troops in case of emergencies. Russian military personnel, during a check of the combat readiness of anti-terror forces, repelled an attack by conditional saboteurs on the facilities of the Karakol naval test site on Lake Issyk-Kul in Kyrgyzstan, according to Colonel Yaroslav Rashupkin, an official representative of the Central Military District. According to the training plan, 3 conditional sabotage and terrorist groups invaded the perimeter of the military facility from water and land, trying to seize administrative and warehouse buildings. The forces on duty found the combat swimmers and started a fight. According to Rashupkin, he explained that the reinforcement units came to the aid of the military, who blocked the attackers, pinning them to the water, and then the militants who seized the boats were intercepted by a marine immediate response team. The Karakol test site is part of the United Russian military base in Kyrgyzstan and is intended for testing marine underwater weapons. It is characterized by unique physical, geographical, and hydrological conditions and allows for year-round research. Now, let me explain my particular interest in all of this. For decades, I have been pursuing and investigating the case of the so-called swimmers, gigantic size humanoid beings sighted in the Lake Baikal and later reported to be in Lake Issyk-Kul. You can see my video. I will put the URL in description to this here video, so I don't have to repeat myself. I'm internationally renowned, so to say, for this research, and it's a very unusual case. And the mention of Issyk-Kul, which is strategically very important for the Russian defense as well, and for the uranium and so forth. And of course, Lake Baikal is telling me something about another aspect of the necessary preparedness of the Russian combat swimmers and who they're hunting for down below. And it's not the usual adversary. So please see the video that I'll present the URL to. And I will continue to bring you interesting stories about the Russian Spetsnaz, and of course some of the paranormal aspects that Russian special forces are facing. And if you like my research, please support me through the links you'll find in the description to this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit notification button. Please tell others about my work. Thank you.